We're now going to look at the normalization and annotation tools. So first up, normalization. This allows us to modernize the language of a certain piece of text. So we're going to take this piece of text here, and when we select it, there are two options. This one is to annotate, this is to normalize. So let's normalize it first. So we're contacting the normalization service, sending that text off, and it's returned in a modern form. So certain words, so we can see in the background here the word drawn. You see drawn has been modernized, the word upon was as well. So the archaic form has been modernized. The words are not reordered. So the original sentence or structure and order is maintained, but this still facilitates reading, certainly for people who are not expert in reading this 17th century English. To annotate then, we again highlight a piece of text, so if I'm interested in this, and we select the annotation button. And here we can type in some text, so details of initial attack. And that annotation has been saved. You can see on this page also that I had a previous annotation, which is this highlighted piece of text below. To view an annotation, double click on it, and we have a number of different options. We can delete, we can edit if there are any links embedded in the annotation itself, or we can read the text of the annotation. So here we're seeing that Lewis Brennan admitted to the murder. So they're the main controls for creating your own annotations. You can also view and hide annotations. So here I can hide my annotations by selecting this button, so they're no longer highlighted in the text. This can become particularly important if you have many layers of annotations that you're creating over a piece of text. Also, if annotations are shared on a piece of text, you may wish to hide the annotations shared by others. At any stage, you can list all of the annotations that you have in the environment. And so you can see these are the two that I've created. These are the only two I have in the environment so far. We can also annotate images, so let's have a look at the IPSA collection. So here you can see two annotations that I have within the IPSA collection, so let's browse into them. They're both on the same document. So we scroll down to the document here, we can see the highlighted areas, and these function in a very similar way. Double click again to have a look at the annotation, so this is a note about leaves. To create an annotation, we just drag over a certain area, and again we have access to the annotation dialog. So I'm just going to cancel that. So they function in a very similar way. So the annotation and normalization tools give the researcher quite powerful editing ability over what they're viewing. There are a number of useful tools to help browse beyond an individual deposition or document. So on the right hand side we can see deposition entities as a block here. I'll talk about the visualizations in a later part of the video, but I'd like to talk about the people and the locations here. So you can see that there are two links behind them. There's E for entity and T for text. These entities, these people, have been automatically extracted from the text to help us browse further. So let's have a look at Elizabeth Lawless, for example. So if we click on the T, that'll do a text search, and as you can see, she only occurs in one deposition, one document in the collection. So it's the only occurrence of her name. So if we navigate back, let's have a look at entity search. So let's have a look at the infamous Lewis Brennan. So on the entity search, we can see that Lewis Brennan is a person. As we click down through, we can see here that he's mentioned in two depositions. And we see he's also mentioned in the deposition of Eileen Swift. So when we navigate in there, we can see that she's mentioned a number of different people. So we can continue navigating through and see that Eileen has mentioned some family members, but also a variety of different people. And see she's mentioned Richard Barnard himself. So this indicates that this might be a deposition that would be of value for us to browse to. So by clicking the Open Deposition button, we will navigate back into the deposition now of Eileen Swift, and we can start reading through and seeing what happened here. So we can see that Brennan is up to his old tricks again. We also have some recommendations here for other depositions that might be of interest to us. So, and what rationale there is. So we can see that Lewis Brennan's mentioned in both of these. So we can kind of see a circle. So Lewis Brennan is only mentioned in these two depositions, and the recommendations are pulling that out for us. So these are some advanced features that allow us to navigate using the entities within the documents themselves. Now I'd like to show the visualization tools. These visualizations are built on the entities that we saw in the last part of the video. So let's launch one of those. Let's launch the wheel on the examination of Eileen Swift. So here we can see a visualization that highlights the different entities related. And we can see that Eileen Swift and then John here is indicated as being a soldier. Joan Condon is indicated as being a wife. And we have a number of other persons that are mentioned that we don't know an awful lot about, that we have seen Lewis Brennan and Richard Bernard occur before. So let's follow the entity trail for those. So let's look at the entity network for Richard. So we see Richard is mentioned in a number of different depositions. So obviously Elizabeth Lawless and Eileen Swift we've seen before, but the examination of Joan Condon, which we haven't necessarily looked at, and the examination of Richard Hudson. So all of these mention the unfortunate Richard Bernard. So these give us items which we might then navigate to and further our exploration. The octopus then gives us an alternative visualization. And again, we can see the different people who are mentioned within Joan Condon's examination.